All right, Nick, I'm going to stop you right there because I didn't realize that the countdown had different music on it. So it totally threw me off. I'm over there. What is this? This is some strange music.
It's
Guys, if you're
elevator
just
music, man. It was just yeah,
yeah,
hanging out.
yeah, hanging out. Okay, guys, we have Nick with Park Family Farms Distilling. Did I get that right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
All right, and he's going to tell us about what they're doing over there up in Pennsylvania, and we're going to just chat about all the cool things that they're doing, and yeah, we'll see where it goes. I have me a cup of coffee right here, fixing to get into that, but yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for the intro. Yeah.
No
So
problem.
we're about an hour east of Pittsburgh. A little bit about me. So I'm a active duty Army. I'm still actually I'm 14 years in the Army right now. Still chugging along. And this started out as a hobby for me. And honestly, being stationed around, I was stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky,
Mm,
and surrounded by it. And I always had, I'll put it in air quotes. I always had a passion for whiskey, right? I always enjoyed it, but I always saw it as more of like an enjoyment thing, not something that I could make my own or make a career of. Um, and then just outside of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, there's a place called MB Roland Distillery,
hmm
which is a fantastic distillery. Has been around for a little while. They do have a lot more aged product now. But when I was heading up there and doing the picking on the porch and everything like that, which is one of their big events throughout the summer,
right.
um, it was a lot of flavored whiskey, flavored moonshines, if you
hmm
will, just flavored grain neutral spirits, a bunch of different stuff, and they had a huge product line. And one of my E7s, one of my sergeant first class, actually retired after we got back from Afghanistan and started working up there. And I got to find out all about MB Roland. It's
Awesome.
funny because I don't know if you've ever heard of Liberty Pole Distilling.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they have a peated bourbon that's fantastic too. They cut their teeth at MB Roland as well.
Okay.
So it's kind of funny MB Roland's having its influence on Western
Everybody.
Pennsylvania distilleries right now.
Right.
But yeah, so the guy that started MB Roland is a veteran, and he did it. He did it through trial and error. He did it through education. He did it through the old-fashioned way. It wasn't necessarily, and I'm not going to speak for him, but
Right.
from what I gathered, it wasn't a generational like passed down type thing that we're kind of used to in a lot of distilling. So
hmm
it really opened my eyes to what is in the realm of possible for guys that are just getting into distilling.
Okay.
Um, and it just so happened with Pennsylvania, they made the we're still a Quaker state, we still have a lot of old fashioned laws, especially when it comes to alcohol and everything.
hmm
The state, we're still run by state stores. There's still a very heavy influence of the Liquor Control Board. So
hmm
um, it just so happened that around that same time, there was a lot of legislation that was really friendly towards craft distilling. So at a similar time frame, it was instead of just having a distiller's license, where it was just a single distiller's license, difficult to enter, difficult to get.
hmm
Um, they started a limited distiller's license that puts you at anything under 100,000 proof gallons. You can have this limited distiller's license, which for craft distillers, for me,
Yeah.
that's good. That's enough
Yeah.
for right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, we're doing pretty good for over top of that. So
hmm
it was a timing thing. It was a location thing. I had to thank the Army a little bit for putting me in a location that has a lot of great distilleries around it.
hmm
Um, so yeah, it was a lot of timing and location for me. And as I dug into it, we were talking before we started a little bit about Western Pennsylvania and its influence in American whiskey to begin
Right.
with, how the Whiskey Rebellion, how especially with Pittsburgh and that area, how
Mhm.
the rivers kind of um, allowed us to expand into the frontier, and where a lot of whiskey recipes that were supposedly Western Pennsylvania whiskey recipes were taken into Kentucky. There's a lot of lore surrounding the derivation of Kentucky bourbon and everything like
Mhm.
that. And I like to grab onto the lure that says that it came from Pittsburgh first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we grabbed on. I'm not going to jump into, what Dad's Hat was talking about and everything too, because I'm sure they covered a lot of it. But rye was a big basis around us. Old Overholt, which is actually produced in Kentucky now, was produced 10 minutes from where I grew up, and I never had any idea.
Wow.
That's where Old Overholt Monongahela rye whiskey, that's where they produced it 10 minutes from my house, and I had no idea. They have a great museum there now as the industry rebuilds. But it's just one of those things that the more I dig, the more I get interested in it. I'm stationed in Alexandria. Well, I'm stationed in Maryland. I live in Alexandria right now.
Okay.
Like 15 minutes from Mount Vernon.
Oh.
So if you've never had the opportunity, the Mount Vernon, George Washington's Distillery on Mount Vernon, when we talk about the old-fashioned way of doing things and the way that kind of they did it around Pittsburgh at the time of the Whiskey Rebellion, which we're not going to get into the hypocrisy of making whiskey and then marching on just on Pittsburgh for whiskey making, but the way that they do it in Mount Vernon is the way that it was traditionally done, with a hogshead where you dump boiling water and you kind of dump cold water and you mix, and that's how you do your ferment and your mash. And they have it all set up, and they'll walk you through all of it. So it's kind of like a whiskey nerds destination to kind of see how traditional whiskey was made. The one thing that they do is they barrel age it, which from in my research, barrel aging wasn't really a thing until the later years. So a lot of times you would get some aging from like the barrel in the back of a wagon shaking around for a couple weeks on the trail, and then it would go to market and sell. But that's all the barrel aging that they would get. So that science hadn't really happened yet. But hey, I'm rambling. You tell me where you want to go from that, man.
No. First off, I want to stop right there, and I want to thank you so much for your service, and thank you for what you've done for my country and your country. Just putting your life on the line for us. I definitely appreciate that. I wanted to get that out of the way because it is a big deal. We're going through some times right now. I'm not going to say trying or otherwise. We're going through some changing right now, and I just I can't thank you guys enough for breaking your backs for us. So moving on from that, one of my good buddies, Alan Bishop, is a reenactor at Mount Vernon, and he just got back from there like last week, and or a couple days ago even, and he said it's the most fun he's ever had, but it's the hardest work he's ever done in his life at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
So,
sure.
because he's the one mashing and doing all. He sent me a picture of him sitting on top of the still, holding it down so it didn't blow the head off the still. It's just really cool that people are into the history of whiskey, because obviously it has a very sordid past, but at the same time it also has a very romantic history as well. So why don't you so we started there. Why don't we go into a little bit more of your obviously active duty Army? Has that been what you've done your entire career, or were you in IT before that, or?
No, so I went to University of Pittsburgh for undergrad, and then I did ROTC and commissioned into the Army, and that's been my gig ever since, man. So I was just a business management degree coming out of college, and always had an interest in entrepreneurship, but kind of never had an idea of where I wanted to take that. I've been Army ever since. I'm a bomb squad. I'm the explosive ordnance disposal. I'm the guy with the bomb suit type guy. So
there you go.
That's what I've been doing since I graduated college. I've had some opportunities to do a couple other things. Like I went into the AI realm for a little bit in Pittsburgh, which was really interesting. And I've had some outside I got my MBA when I was stationed in Kansas. I was out in Leavenworth for a year and a half. So I've been able to, get some other information along the way.
Right.
But been Army since college. Yeah. So 14
That's
years for me.
that's really cool, because there's some people, and we're not going to talk about Army all night, I promise, guys. But like, there's some people that are like, I'm going to go do my time and get out of there, and then some people are like, hey, this is a thing. I can make this a thing, and you know what? They feed me, they give me clothes, all of the things, and like, if you can raise a family and do stuff like that while doing that, that's pretty awesome. So let's get into the whiskey part of it.
Yeah.
Like, I know you said you were kind of a whiskey enthusiast, but what made you want to take that step into doing whiskey stuff?
So taking that step, I had like the entrepreneurial mindset prior to, in seeing and enjoying whiskey, because it's a science, but it's also, like you mentioned, like the romanticism, like it's a science, but it's also so much more than that. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more to like being able to take grain and turn it into something that's entirely different. There's a romance to that I really, really grabbed onto, and being around whiskey distillers and veteran distilleries in Kentucky and Tennessee, really influenced hey, we could really do this. It just so happened that we had a 100-acre farm outside of Pittsburgh that had fresh water. That when I started to gather the pieces of what does it mean to actually make a distillery, I started to put together the pieces and understand that we had some of them already. We have property, we have water, we have fresh water, which so many distilleries, that's asking a lot, because they're on city water,
They are. Yep.
So we don't have to concern ourselves with that. But we actually had surprisingly enough, our uncle owned a lumbering business, and he owned a logging business, and he had a 75-foot by 40-foot empty building because he closed his business down. So talk about like having some infrastructure in place already. The pieces it was like too strong of a signal for me to be like, nah, no, it's too much. Yeah. So we started with that. I talked to my cousins a couple times, because this is straight up family business. My dad is retiring this week, and he's going to go full time with the distillery.
That's awesome.
So when we talked to my cousins about it, we all thought the same thing. Like, wait a second, this is feasible. So that's when we started to put the pieces together, find out it's tough. The regulatory aspects of it are tough, like trying to figure out all the ways to not get in trouble, is really tough. But we made it tough on ourselves too, because we didn't have a lot of funding. We didn't go out and seek funding. Everything was kind of piecemealed. So a lot of the electrical was done by us, and then come in and somebody would check it, make sure it was to code. All of our plumbing was done by us, and then somebody came out and checked. So it was one of those things that we kind of, it was trial and error, learning how to do things, just literally from the ground up. The learning curve on infrastructure was steep. The learning curve on distilling was steep. The learning curve on what we needed equipment wise was steep. And it was, it was an uphill battle the whole way, man, but we didn't stop. We kept rolling with it. You mentioned kind of at the beginning, the cold aspect of it. Well, it is, and still is, a barn. It is a non-temperature controlled barn. Now we have a couple rooms, so we do a fermentation, and of course our bathroom, we're not dealing with that. Right. Our bathroom and our fermentation room, like mash room, those are both temperature controlled, but the rest of the building is not. So when we do distillations in the winter, it is an entirely different beast than doing distillations in the summer. Because the ambient, the way that the copper reacts, we have a column, and we have a deflagrator on the column that we kind of pull plates out depending on what we're making and everything. Right. Our deflagrator, when it's cold out, is like 30 or 40 degrees difference than when it's not, because we're talking, we were doing distillations in single digits a couple times this winter. And that is outrageously different than doing a distillation in the summer when it's temperate.
Right. Right.
So along those same lines, and stop me if you have any questions, but along those same lines, being in a rural location, this was not something we planned for, but so much of distillation equipment is 3-phase. We don't have any 3-phase out there. So like none of us are electricians. How do we solve that problem? How do we solve like the water, how much water, how much stillage we have? Like the stillage is a little bit easier than somebody in a city, but some of our water and electrical issues are not. Right. So it's funny, man. I talked to somebody down the road from us with a distillery, and their problems are same, but different. Yeah, it's funny how different it can be from location to location on the things that you have to think about and overcome.
Right, exactly, because each entity is itself, right? Because you might be pumping from the river or wherever you're pumping from for your water. Your pump might be a 2 horsepower pump and theirs might be a 0.5 horsepower pump, or vice versa, and it's all about the equipment you're using, the just how you're doing it as well. Like some people do mash a certain way, some people distill a certain way, where it's like, and there's really no right or wrong way to do it. Obviously you want to make sure you get the best product in the glass as possible, but at the same time, like, you figure it out. Like you're saying, you figure it out along the way and hope that you don't hurt people, which you're not going to, because you're going to do the right cuts and all the all the things in between there. But it's really intriguing to me that you just kind of had some stuff and you were like, hey, let's do this and this, and just kind of made it work with what you have. Because when people, and I'm not dogging anybody who wants to do this, but when people go get 15 investors and they invest $100 million into a company, and then they're doing this and doing that and putting labels on things and all the things, like, it's good whiskey, don't get me wrong, it's good whiskey, but at the same time, where's the heart? And you guys, I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have put the blood, sweat, and tears into it to get to the beginning, to get started, and now you're rolling with it. So how long has this been a process?
So we started talking about this in 2016.
Okay.
We started talking about this in 2016, and then I'm going to say this, that you're going to laugh. Oh, woe is me. I got stationed in Hawaii for 4 years. So 2016, we conceived the idea. We started our infrastructure improvement. And then 2017, it went full stop, and I got stationed in Hawaii for 4 years. So ultimately what happened is our project got put on hold. And then when I got back from Hawaii, it went back into full swing. So we got our equipment orders and everything done in 21. And our install happened in 22, and our first batches came off the line end of 22. And our first stuff went in a barrel in like mid 23.
Okay.
So yeah, we actually just dumped our first barrels a couple months ago, which is pretty exciting.
That's exciting. So, are you focusing on whiskey, or you said you had a deflator where you could pull plates? Are you doing other like cordials and vodkas and gins and stuff like that as well?
No, we're strictly producing whiskey. But what we found is with such a very particular product focus, our revenue stream. So from a business standpoint, our revenue stream is very limited, because the anti-business aspect of whiskey is the fact that you have all of your cash flows tied up into a warehouse somewhere.
Right.
So what conceptually what we'd like to do is move into more of like the grain neutral spirits and the vodka and the gin. But we haven't done that yet. That would just be an additional revenue stream. We started out with whiskey. We love whiskey. We want to continue doing whiskey. And for the most part, what most of my battles with the TTB and with labeling and everything have been, I do not want a moonshine product. I want our product to be a whiskey. I want it to be a flavored whiskey. So a lot of times you'll see distilled spirit specialty on labels and stuff like that because you don't have the whiskey prerequisites. Well, we fought very hard and made sure and adamant that all of our flavored products were whiskeys, not moonshines or not distilled spirit specialties. So hopefully we can keep that trend within that whiskey because that is our focus for sure.
Okay. So basically, give us an example of like a flavored whiskey, like what would you call that?
So we have a couple different flavored whiskeys. They're all corn whiskey based, which is our white dog basically. Our white dog bourbon recipe, which is a two grain whiskey recipe, which is just straight up easy 20% malted barley, 80% corn. Really easy to replicate. And that's what we use for our base for our flavored whiskeys. And right now we have 3 different types of flavored whiskey. We have a jalapeno ginger lime flavored whiskey. And we like to say that if you're a tequila drinker, try our jalapeno ginger lime flavored whiskey. We have a honey lemon flavored whiskey.
Okay.
Which we say if you're a vodka drinker, try this. And then for our Scotch drinkers, there's something called bohea tea. So bohea tea, and this goes back to the whole thing of like, hey, you have like a whiskey rebellion colonies type vibe to this is our homage to that era. Bohea tea was a favorite of the American colonists. And actually, by volume, it's what they threw into the Boston Harbor.
Okay.
By volume, it's the most of the tea that they threw into Boston Harbor. So, uniquely enough, the tea is very hearty, very unique tea. It's a black tea, and they dry the tea leaves by smoking them. So when you use that to flavor your whiskey, you get a slight tea flavor, but it has like more of a Scotch smoky flavor.
Okay.
That's what a lot of people say. They're like, wow, I did not kind of expect that flavor out of this. So it's really unique. So we're really like hammering down the uniqueness of product. We want to try to hit a lot of like the niche flavor profiles. So that if somebody tries something, they're like, man, where did I get that? They can come back to us, and we have something unique. So I know we're not gonna beat out people in the market for volume. So at the very least, we can be creative.
Right. Exactly. And like, especially the last one, being a Scotch guy myself, like, I drink, and I'm going to butcher the name, Lapsang Sugong tea, which is another one of those teas, from China China that was smoked as well. And it's very tea, but it also has that smoke. And I'm guessing this is very similar to that, which is pretty interesting because a lot of people are doing a lot of stuff with not using grains to smoke. They're using other profiles to get their whiskeys to the profile that they want, like using an old Isla barrel or something like that, just to get a hint of smoke on it, or using this tea as well. It's like, and it's really intriguing, the innovation that's coming through the distillers. They're like, hey, I don't have to have my hands tied with Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. I can do whatever I want. And yes, there will be people out there that are going to be like, that's cool, that's different, I want that. And I think you playing into that is really cool because there's so many people out there trying to repeat the same mash bill over and over and over and over and over again, and they're just slapping a different label on it. And it's like, okay, guys, come on. Once you've had one MGP recipe, you've had pretty much all of them.
That's funny. I was going to say how many MGPs are on out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
MGP makes a fantastic product. I'm not going to take it away from them, but how many MGPs do you want on your shelf? So
absolutely. Yeah. And so are you doing just a straight whiskey as well, or are they all flavored?
No, so we have our 100 proof corn whiskey in our
Okay.
non-aged line. And then our aged whiskeys, we have our wheated bourbon. And in barrels right now, we have a high rye.
Ooh.
One thing that I'm particularly interested because we tested it on a small batch was a full single malt oat. So it was malted. So you know how single malts are generally barley. The only grain we used was malted oat, and it was a really, really cereal, like really intense, like grain flavor. And then when you put it in the barrel, it kind of mellowed out the grain, but mixed it in with some of the vanilla and everything. We're really excited about that. I think that might be something that we break something new out with that one.
That's different for sure, because I've heard of people using oats in their mash bill or something like that, but 100% malted oat, that's a unique of a mash bill as I've heard of. So that's super interesting.
Have you tried Corsair out of Nashville?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, they've always been well known for having like unique mash bills. They have like a quinoa and a buckwheat and a few other things. Yeah, I really like how they kind of experiment with their bills.
Right. But it's definitely not everybody's whiskey, right? It's one of those ones where you're like, you might want to try it, but I don't know if you'd want to have a whole bottle of it, because some of that, there's one that they did that was like a triple smoke or something like that, where I was like, okay, I like smoky whiskey. Let's try that. It was like they smoked the barrel, they smoked the grain, and then they smoked it after, and once they vatted it or whatever. Anyway, it was a lot of smoke, but it was like, it got like almost ashtray smoky, and I was like, I don't know, man, that might be a bit much, but to each their own.
To each their own. Yeah.
And it's one of those things, like, if you're not innovating, you're dying, right? Because people are. I just did I do personal podcasts.
Jack Daniels has new product lines all the time, and if Jack Daniels is innovating, you better be innovating.
Absolutely, because like these guys have been making the same mash bill for 150 years, and now they're changing stuff. So you might as well go out there and say, because people are walking away. They're not walking away, but like they're finding other outlets to go through. And they're not drinking as much whiskey, so you have to make it interesting for them. We're not all drinking our granddad's old granddad, like we're trying different things and new things, and that's why I enjoy talking to craft distillers doing cool stuff. Just like whatever you're doing, it's cool. Like, and that's kind of what I want to showcase. Yes, would I love to get Buffalo Trace on here to talk about their products? Sure, why not? But guess what? They won't return an email. So it is what it is. And so until then, and it probably will never happen, because they're like, we don't need you for, we don't need marketing through you, so it's fine. But I digress through that. But it's also the innovation part of it. For me, it means more work, and it's more nerdery for you and I both, because it's something cool that I can say, man, I've never had that, I'd like to try that. And you're saying, hey, I've never made this, I'd like to make this, and let's see what it does. So that to me is super cool. So
we started this without financing, with the full-on intent of being able to screw up and be wholly product focused.
Right.
So being able to kind of like throw something at the wall and seeing if it sticks, and not worrying about like, hey, if we don't pay these bills, they're going to come take our still. I think that aspect is really nice for us. That's not always in the cards for everybody, but specifically for us, being able to fall in on some facilities and have some utilities available, like I think that gives us a unique opportunity to really be product focused and try stuff. I really love trying stuff. And if it's terrible, I will say, this is terrible, I don't want to sell this. And the only person that has to take that hit is me. So being able to do that is really, really nice, man. We, if we did anything right, which we did a lot wrong, it's being able to have that influence over our product.
Absolutely. And one of the if you want, you can go into one of your horror stories of like saying, hey, this is this is going to be really cool. And then it turns out to be, oh God, that's dog water. That's gross. I can't drink that. What was one of those, that you had where you're like, okay, it was a good idea, but the follow through on it didn't work out?
Well, some of our like mash bill experimentation at the beginning, some of our flavoring experimentation went that way. Like for some reason, when you try to flavor whiskey with anise, it takes that anise flavor and punches you in the face with it.
Yeah.
Some of the other things like, our first still was direct heat. It had heating elements, and we tried a rye, and it started to smoke, and we were like, "What is happening? What is happening with this?" And that was dog water. That was not. It burned it. So so that was a big one. We've probably done 150 flavor iterations on different stuff. And we just do little mason jars. We take our base and do little mason jars. And I tell you, everything from just putting hops. We would throw hops in there for a little bit. And, at first we'd be like, oh, this is really good. Let it sit for a little longer. And we let it sit for a little longer. And we're like, oh, my God, throw it away, burn it,
Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily, we're only experimenting with little bits.
Right.
A couple of I would say probably we've only had a couple big batches that were ever truly bad, which, we screw up a big batch. It's not too bad. It's just the price of grain, and, we'll figure it out. We won't do it again. So a couple big batches where we were really trying to, figure out what that mash bill ratios were going to look like. A couple of those didn't turn out great. And those are bottles we give to family, and then and then we move on. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the cool things I was thinking of as you were talking is you guys have been, dipping your toes into neutral grain spirit. Some of those projects you could just hold back and then distill them higher, distill them a couple times or whatever, put them on the plates and let them roll for a while and get some. Now it might be flavored vodka, you know what I mean? It might end up having some sort of flavor in it, but at least that way you're not losing product, because that's the last thing you want to do is, have to pour product down the drain or give it to family. And the family's like, quit giving me this. This is gross.
Yeah. We've had to redistill a couple times too. Yeah. So if we have to put something back in, if we don't like how something turned out, if we, and we have copper on. It's just one of those things you find out as you go through. We have copper on the condenser side, and every once in a while, we work out our cleaning process. So sometimes we get flock, sometimes we get some bluing, sometimes we get a bunch of other stuff. And what do you do with that? Do you burn it? Do you get rid of it? Right. You can redistill it and give it a taste, retest it, make sure everything's good with it, and then move on. So we've done that a few times with subpar product and having to kind of reposition that and put it back through the process. Make a few later batches a little hotter, but that's all right.
And that's one of the things that I think distillers and whiskey people don't talk about enough is like when you're doing like you were talking about the rye earlier, when you're doing a dirty mash like a rye and you're trying to distill it, it just makes such a mess inside the still. And so clean up afterwards is a huge part of distillation, which everybody loves to see the glory of it and the stuff dripping out of the end and it's the great product, but they don't understand the hours that go into cleaning after you did a distillation and then sanitizing and then citric acid washing and all of that stuff. I mean, that to me is what makes a distiller a true distiller, is not being like, you know what, that's somebody else's problem, walking off from it. It can
just
get
leave
really,
it. Just leave it. Who cares? Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, rye is nasty business sometimes, man. You get a lot of foam. I mean, you can't get, it's the protein in the husk. Like everything about it is just it's a dirty mash. So it's one of those things that like you got to have your cleaning processes down pat. Otherwise, you're going to be
Mhm.
looking at reforming those afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's really difficult to get stuff out when it's in like a 2-inch tube. You got to pull it all apart and
You got to
get
pull it all apart.
scrubbies and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff and soak it and all those things. I only know that because I go to distilleries and I see them actively doing that, and I'm like, yeah, that looks like it sucks. And he goes, yeah, you caught us on a bad day. We're cleaning everything, which is part, to me, as a whiskey, I call myself a whiskey nerd, but like as a whiskey nerd, I want to see those things. Like, yes, I love to see all the pretty copper up there doing all its thing and whatever, but I like to see the guys over there sweating, scrubbing stuff and saying it's not all it's cracked out to be. That's why that bottle costs a little more from a craft distillery, because we have to do this. We don't have a 38-inch column that we're dealing with here. We're dealing with small pipes and stuff. So, so have you moved from Electric Element, or are you still on that?
No, we moved from Electric Element. So this past year, we installed a full steam system.
Sweet.
Yeah, and man, that's the way to go.
Absolutely.
I will tell anybody that's a startup, don't skimp out and just go straight with the steam system, because you're going to end up doing that eventually anyway. And it's just it is so much better. It's so much more efficient. For the learning curve, obviously at the very beginning, you got to learn how to actually control the steam inputs and everything. But once you get past that learning curve, it's so much better. Those heating elements would just burn. They'd be impossible to clean. We'd turn them on full blast and they would just burn whatever was next to it, but wouldn't heat what was ever farther away. So it's the steam is absolutely 100% the way to go.
Yes, sir.
And that's what we're running now. So
okay, and if you don't mind, and if you don't want to talk about that, that's fine. What size still are you guys using?
Right now it's 150 gallons still.
Okay. So it's big enough to make a pretty good batch, but not so big to where you're like, okay, what are we going to do with all this whiskey? Yeah.
Because we do 100% batch distillations, because obviously we're not in a continuous column or anything. And we don't like things sitting. It either wants to be in a barrel or a bottle. So, it makes it manageable to be able to have 150 gallons still, because we can do a barrel in a run, and it's one of those things that we have small barrels, by the way. We're not rolling with full size, but right now we have like 15 and 30 gallon barrels that we're filling. So we can do one of those in a run, which is great for us. We don't have a lot of warehousing concerns at that point. We can kind of be deliberate what we do with a batch. So it's a good size for us for right now. Down the road, maybe expand. Maybe down the road, maybe have a second still. But for right now, we're humming with what we got.
That's awesome. And so, what has the I'm going to ask this question as well, but do you all have like a tasting room or something like that to where people can come up there and taste your products? Or
yeah. So we do have a tasting room right now. So we have an old farmhouse. Our intent with the old farmhouse, it's our family's old farmhouse. Like my grandmother grew up there.
Oh wow.
Our intent is that's down by the road, and it's still standing. It just kind of needs some TLC. So for right now, we have a bar and a tasting room in our facility, like in our actual production facility. So if people come up to our production facility, they walk in, it's straight up a barn. There's no way around that. But they can look straight back and see our still. And they can do all their tasting right there at the front. We have a nice bar set up and everything. So
that's really cool. That's really cool, because I mean it's all a part of getting to the people. And so what has the community how have they reacted to you guys doing this? Because I know when you go on old historic pieces of land and you're trying to do something, how has the community came out with that?
A lot. Nothing but positive feedback, man. It's been great. I think I think our area still has a lot of moonshining to believe it or not. I think our area, because when we do like local events, everybody's like, asking us very pointed questions about our setup and like, are you guys doing this? What about a thumper keg? We're like, no, we're not doing distillations like that, man. We don't use a thumper keg.
Right.
Yeah. So very, very pointed questions about, I think that it's still very much so ingrained in that area. So our road right off of, we have a very rural road that we
Right.
work off of. The next street down is called Old Distillery Road, not ours. The next road down is called Old Distillery Road because there were a bunch of stills up there in the hills for years and years. So I think a lot of people. My grandma goes to church up the road because it's she still lives out there, and she always talks about the people at church talk about the moonshiners, the park moonshiners down the road. And she's like, they're not moonshining. They're doing it legally. So, yeah. So it's been nothing but positive feedback. We also have a expanded community where they do, they're doing this like a tourism initiative called Pour Tour, where it brings in all the wineries, breweries, and all of the distilleries, since we have so many up there now. And it puts it in like a booklet where people can go out and make a purchase and get a sticker. So it's kind of like a treasure hunt for people in the area to come out and see all the breweries and distilleries and wineries and everything. So we get a ton of walk-ins just participating in that Pour Tour event. And that's just local proximity to a tourism board that took that initiative on. So very lucky in that aspect.
Absolutely. Because when you have the community's backing, it means a lot, because that's kind of how distilleries were meant to be. They were local community distilleries. You were distilling what you had on site, at the farm or whatever. You had apples. Guess what? We're making brandy. You had a good wheat crop. We're making wheat whiskey, that type of thing. And so it's really cool to see the community coming back. And then, obviously you guys putting on events and things like that. It just draws more and more people to the distillery and gets the name out there more, because obviously I heard of you guys, and how does that happen? You know what I mean? So how has it been? You guys have been in it a couple of years doing your thing, getting out there, getting into the world and getting outside of your community, just getting a little bit further, even into like Pittsburgh and places like that. How has it been getting bottles to people?
So I want to preface, I just want to say one thing off of what you were talking about before about local community and everything.
Go ahead.
One thing that we found out early on was supply chains are very, very fragile parts of distillation in the distillery business. So one thing that we saw was at the very beginning we were looking into was getting everything as close to us as possible, physically possible. So we are lucky to have a malter in Pittsburgh. So we get all of our malt from a guy in Pittsburgh. We get all of our stuff locally from farms around there. So we can shake the hands of the farmers and they can actually like see where their stuff is going. Like we can, we'll bring them a bottle of whiskey and they'll be like, oh, this is our stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is your grain, So that was really important to us for, connecting with the local community, but also just from a business standpoint, man, like the supply chain disruption is real. So if you can get stuff local, like that was huge for us. And it's really helpful for us to be able to continue with our business. But anyway, to answer your question with expansion, we actually just did our first event in Pittsburgh on Saturday this last week.
Wow.
Yeah. So being that we're all like kind of part-time distillers, we're all still weekenders with this business, except, my dad's about to go full-time. We're all still weekenders with this. It's been difficult to distribute because we have to kind of stand on each side of the fence and not overextend ourselves. So when we start getting into distribution outside of our immediate area or outside of our county or outside of the events that we can manage, we run into the potential for us to overextend ourselves. And the absolute last thing that I want is for a potential customer to want a product of ours and not be able to get it. So we've been really deliberate in our scaling with how we expand. And now that we have the steam system, larger still, and everything, we're starting to move our way into Pittsburgh, and solicit more of that region as well. But honestly, it's a new day and age, man. Social media has been I have mixed feelings about social media, but from a business standpoint, it's great. It's it's cheap. The reach is there for people that are interested in your product. So from my personal, selfish standpoint, social media is really helpful. So I think that is definitely a big aspect of being able to get your name a little bit further than you normally would. But all of us craft distillers work on an incredibly finite marketing budget.
Right.
So I have to kind of wrestle with that all the time. I get marketing opportunities that would expand our product line, expand our brand, but at what cost? And that's kind of what I wrestle with a lot, with how we can expand, but at a rate that we can manage. So like I said, this last weekend we had a big event at the casino in Pittsburgh. 1,500, 2,000 attendees to the event. So definitely a big step in the right direction for us on how on brand recognition.
And how did that what was the feedback on that, being that you're in a kind of a not different but different where was the crowd happy with everything they got, or how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of wow, what is that flavor? Can I try that? Can I try that? That's really unique. We spend a lot of time explaining how to drink our stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So we, you also run the risk with a unique product, unlike, I know how to drink bourbon. Explain to me how to drink this smoky tea whiskey. Explain to me what I can put that in. So I think it's really, really important for us to be able to have our products, but also have like a demonstration of our products. So what we do a lot is our jalapeno ginger lime flavored whiskey. We'll put that in with ginger beer and serve it as a mule. Like a Kentucky mule or a Moscow mule, and people will taste it and be like, wow, this is great. And then you get somebody that wants to buy a bottle because they want to make that at home. Right. So, there's a little bit of salesmanship there associated with it, but it was great feedback. A lot of people were like, so who are you guys? Where are you located? And I said, Stallstown. And people that grew up their entire lives in Pittsburgh are like, Stallstown? Where the hell is Stallstown? So it's an hour east of here, go by the ski resorts, turn left, we'll do that whole thing. So very grassroots engagement with customers last weekend. But positive feedback all around. Yeah.
That's amazing, because that's what you want, right? You say you want to grow slowly, and you don't want it to turn in, this is a labor of love for you. You don't want to turn into a terror at the end where you're like, oh, now I have to quit my job. I mean, which again, that might be the end goal. It's like, do the distilling thing full time for everybody, one day. But like right now, it's like, hey, this is still fun, quote unquote fun. So let's do the fun thing until it's not fun and we have to pay bills with it. Or we get the brand recognition, which I don't, I want this episode to go to skyrocket, but at the same time, at your pace, right? It's one of those things, but it's also like, it's understanding your profile and how you guys want to do it, because at the end, like you said, turning down people that want to buy in on it and just saying, hey, no, we're going to do it our way. And that takes a lot of guts and a lot of, a lot of hope in yourself, because you're seeing it grow the way you want it to grow, and you're not beckon to somebody else, which a lot of distilleries, once they get a silent partner or a business, or they get like startup money or something like that, they feel they feel emboldened to they feel like they're stuck to that thing, and they have to like meet a quota and do all of the things, where you guys are literally doing it like, hey, we're going to have an event. We're not going to distill this weekend or whatever. We're going to do a thing. We're going to have a family picnic. It's going to be a lot of fun. Or you're like, hey, we're going to bust some barrels out today and let's get to work. So like you get to like kind of pick and choose how you want to do it. And that to me is what craft distilling is all about. It's not so much meeting quotas. It's more about filling the hearts and minds of your community and letting them understand the product that you're putting on the table.
Well said, man. Thank you. Yeah. A passion for whiskey, a passion. I love Pittsburgh. I love my hometown. It's a passion for everything that we get to do. And that really is what it is. We get to do it. This is a phenomenal opportunity that we don't take lightly. And we love going out there and just making whiskey, man. It's the American dream.
It really is. Like, it really is the American dream. Like everybody would love, because, whiskey's been around for a while, and we've been distilling it for what, 6,000 years. They didn't call it whiskey back then, but still, grain spirits or whatever
the
you want to call it.
TTB didn't force us to call it whiskey.
Right. Exactly. So like, everybody thinks I'm going to retire and do this, and it's going to be fun, or have a brewery or a winery, or that's why there's so many of them out there, because people were like, screw it. I'm sick and tired of working my day job, busting my butt, not making any money, not going anywhere, making the big man more money than I got. So I'm going to go do this thing that I enjoy, still not making money, but at least it makes me happy. And then eventually
enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the end, if all the numbers add up and, you can feed your family at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. But yeah, no, it's super cool that you guys are just like, you know what, we're going to do it our way and only our way. And it has to be that. So you said you're a whiskey guy. So if you're not drinking your own product which it's a labor of love, obviously, when you have to sample your own products and like do tasting on them and stuff like that. But what is the worst
part of the job, man? When you're taking a whiskey thief and trying out barrels, it's the worst part of the job.
Exactly. But like, let's say you're headed to the house and you just want to pour a whiskey. It could be a bourbon, scotch, whatever you want to have. What are you pouring?
Can I say something crazy to you?
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
I had Barton 1792 makes the whiskey, makes the bourbon for Kirkland, for Costco.
Okay.
So for my money, there's a bottled in bond Kirkland signature bourbon that is the best bourbon I've ever had for the price point. And that is, I bought 6 bottles the last time I had an opportunity to. And I'm not exaggerating. That is for the price point. That is a fantastic product. But aside from the price point, if I just have an absolute go-to, let me think. I really, really like. I am a fan of just a Blanton's. I really do like Blanton's. It is expensive. I think it's overpriced for what it is. But I do really like it when I have it. I think it's straight down the middle. I think it's really good. I'm drinking Uncle Nearest right now, which is Tennessee. So, and I really enjoy that. So it's hard for me to discriminate across the board. If I can find a Buffalo Trace, have you had Traveler whiskey? Yeah. Chris Stapleton's whiskey. That's also a Buffalo Trace product too. So man, like everything Buffalo Trace puts out is a quality product. So it
really is. It pisses me off that it's like really. Come on, guys. But the issue with that, and I'm not going to get on this soapbox, but the issue with that is it automatically allocates it, and it makes it to where you can't freaking get it. And
Yeah.
Traveler was about the only one that you could get, like
Yeah.
in Texas.
I think it's because people don't know it's Buffalo Trace quite just yet.
Right. But
Yeah.
like in Texas, we can't even really get Buffalo Trace, just the baseline
No.
Buffalo Trace, let
No,
alone
not
Eagle Rare, E.H. Taylor, all those.
Yeah.
We can't get any of them. And if you do, you're paying secondary prices $250 or something like that, which I'm not going to do, because it's like, okay, it's good, but it's not great. You know what I mean? I can find something else. I'm good with some early times Bald and Bond or something like that,
Yeah.
But no, that's a great answer. So let's say you said there's a bunch of distillers around you. What would be one of your, like, if you were to collaborate with another distillery or a brewery or a winery even, or a meadery, we can go there if you want, it's fine. What would be like a collaboration that you would want to do? Like, you're already doing flavored whiskeys or finished whiskeys, however you want to call it. What would be a collaboration that you would want to do with somebody else?
So, surprisingly enough, there's a thing around Pittsburgh called Turner's. It's a dairy company, but they do iced tea and a bunch of other stuff like that. If I were to collaborate with anybody, I would want to make like a hard iced tea or hard lemonade with them. So Turner's is a staple in Pittsburgh. Like, it is ubiquitous to the city. Anywhere you go, everybody loves, like, grab a Turner's iced tea, whatever. So if there was somebody I'd want to like collaborate with, it would be them. But aside from that answer, I have a friend that I have known for decades. I went to high school with, who recently started a brewery. And really, anything I can do with them would be awesome, just because I like to keep it in the family, So I think that them using our barrels for like a barrel aged stout, or us using their canning lines to like do some ready to drink stuff, which is a big deal right now. Ready to drink cocktail stuff. So I think those two arenas would probably be where I would want to collaborate the most.
That's awesome. And one thing you could do with your brewery buddy is get some of his stout mash bill and distill that without the hops, obviously, and like kind of to just play around with it. And then, like you're saying, give your barrels to him so he can barrel age stuff in it. And it's an endless collaboration that evolves over time and keeps getting cooler and cooler. I mean, there's only,
I mean, so that's the thing is,
sure.
Like, if you're friends with everybody, you collab with everybody. Like, there's a cider place down the road. I'd love to take some of their stuff and make a brandy. There's a winery down the road. Maybe we could try to do a grappa. You know what I mean? Like, it's like all this different stuff. Like, that is hands down the best thing about this industry is if you want to go surface level, you can go surface level and you'll live at surface level, but it is an endless pit of exploration, of figuring out new stuff, what you want to do, what you can do. I mean, before I go to sleep, I'm reading ADI forums, like the American Distilling Institute forums, just reading about what other people are doing. Because it's a iterative process. It's an endless learning process, and I can't get enough of it. So that's fantastic examples, man. Like, the collaborative opportunity of this business is endless.
And it's so cool that, like, me on this side of the whiskey realm, we're in the same biz, but on different ends, obviously. I enjoy it and I talk about it, but like, I'm the same. Like, I'm in the forums looking at all the new stuff that's coming out, the new mash bills that people are doing, the new releases that everybody has. And I'm just like, dude. And then you're like, okay, my wife's going to kill me if I buy another bottle of whiskey. So I need to chill for a second. But like, you're like, man, I want to try that. I want to go there and do their experience or whatever. Like, there's so many cool things going on in the world, in the, the whiskey world, especially, but like in the world. And like, I feel, and I'm not trying to talk about this because this goes down a different rabbit hole, which is not this show, but like the thing one of the bad things, one of many bad things that COVID brought us was people were just staying at home and they weren't doing anything for good reason. I get why they were doing it, but now the gates have opened up and everything, we're good. And I feel like people are getting out and they're doing things, obviously, because they're coming to your place, they're going to a lot of other places, but like, I feel, and this is just me personally, it's been great for buying whiskey online because the online sales have gone crazy and they really kind of blew up. But it also keeps that separation between me buying the whiskey and you, the distiller of the whiskey. It kind of makes that separate. Was there's nothing like going to the distillery, talking to the distiller, sampling out of the barrel directly with him. There's something visceral about that when I could just say, yeah, I'll go on Seal Box and buy your bottle, that, which is great if I can't find it or whatever. I get that, but there's something about getting out there and doing the damn thing. You know what I mean? Because there's so many people that are just like, well, I only drink, I drink one whiskey or I drink one gin or I drink one. Go out and try things, man. Like just do something different. Repetition is not always the best, unless you're, paying taxes or something like that. Do that. But yeah, I don't know. That was a rant. I'm sorry, but still.
No, that's good, man.
Moving on.
The industry, I really do think that the industry exists to connect people. And I think that like without getting out, without being able to connect with people that enjoy whiskey, people that make whiskey with people that enjoy whiskey, I think that there's a massive gap in the potential of this industry. So yeah, you're absolutely right, man. Going down to your local liquor store and just buying the same thing over and over again. If that's your thing, then that's your thing. You do you. But there's so much more to experience. There's so much more to see. There's so much more to do. There's so many great people. I'm on this side, the making side of the house. I do not go somewhere without trying to seek out a distillery and just shake hands and meet people and see what they're working on. Because it is all about the person. It is all about the people and the connection.
Absolutely. And because at the end of the day, these are the people that are buying your products, and these are the people that, like, yes, would everybody and their dog want to have a mass produced product on the shelf that is just a cash cow raking in money all day? Obviously, yes, let's do that. Yeah. But at the same time, when you're making a tea smoked flavored whiskey, like that just intrigues people. And they're like, oh, let me try that. So you had said that there's a specific way that you drink that particular whiskey. How would you drink that one if I were you, if I were in your shoes? The
smoky tea.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's called Stallstown Tea Party. Okay. Boston Tea Party.
Yeah.
And we I will drink it on the rocks. But I made a cocktail with it that I really, really enjoyed. It was I took the Stallstown Tea Party, substituted that as the liquor base in a martini, used sweet vermouth and bitters, and it was a campfire martini. So sweet vermouth, the smoky tea whiskey and bitters gave you like a martini flavor, but had like a smoky overtone to it. So it was that was a winner for me. That's how I drank that. Yeah.
Wow. That's super intriguing. I never would have really thought about it. Now, one thing I want to ask you, and I'm not going to keep you much longer, but one thing I wanted to ask you was when you do the distillations and you do your additives at the end, and we don't have to go into that process unless you want to, but are you still getting that grain, like the corn base? Are you still getting some of that through the distillate, through what, after the flavorings are put in, you're still getting that?
Yeah, it 100%. Yeah. So like, it's one of those things that like you want to distill at a high enough proof that that's not the overwhelming characteristic of it. But you also want to distill at a low enough proof that it's still whiskey, and you still have the characteristics of whiskey.
Right.
So we're in kind of that middle ground where moonshines traditionally are corn and then sugar. You
Right.
do like a sugar additive to really boost up that yeast yield. For us, we do the corn and malted barley, so it's a less off-putting corn flavor.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever tasted coming off the still, but coming off the still and then we proof it down a little bit, it still has that corn flavor slightly.
Okay.
I mean, but it's very sweet.
Right.
It's a very sweet flavor. So you get some of the sweetness, some of the corn, and that's really like when you're flavoring vodkas, you can throw anything at a flavored vodka, and it'll be whatever. You know what I mean? You can throw birthday cake flavoring at vodka if you really wanted to.
I think I saw that. No, it might have been whipped cream. I think it was whipped cream vodka. Yeah.
I said that because I did see that at a place down the road.
I thought I saw that too, but I wasn't for sure. And I'm like, I get it, but like if your liquor, whatever you want to call it, has to taste like birthday cake for you to drink it, maybe don't drink alcohol, that's a little much, or maybe just eat some cake, like, good Lord, I'm watching the calories,
Yeah. Well, you can eat your cake and get drunk at the same time. I guess maybe it's a win-win. I don't know.
I guess so. So.
So anyway, so like things like that, like are grain neutral. When you distill it like a higher proof, you can kind of throw any flavor at it. But with us, that's why we kind of went through so many iterations of flavoring, is because it has to be particular. It has to we've always tried to go with the flavor rather than against or overwhelm. So that was always our goal, is like, hey, what complements this rather than overwhelms this? So there's, to answer your question, there's always been that you can always taste the corn base.
Okay, cool.
Especially at a high Nashville level, like 80%.
Right. Of course. And on your whiskeys that you're barrel aging, are you getting some pretty good age statements on them before you dump them, or what is your normal dump rate on those?
Yeah. We're aging the 15. So the theoretically, the 15-gallon barrels should age a little bit faster than your full-size barrels.
Right.
And we're getting kind of like, because you usually get like a plateau of flavor on that age, and then it kind of drops back off a little bit if you let it sit for too long. But so right around that plateau, we are getting really good. We're getting really good barrel flavor coming off of there, and it does complement our heavy corn base that we use. So we really like it, and like I said, this is our first dumps, and it was about 2 years for us in the barrel. So some people that come in say, well, it still tastes a little young. Some people that come in are like, man, that's money. That's 100%. When we made the decision to dump, because it had been about 4 or 5 months without any progression. So we made that decision to dump so that we wouldn't risk, dropping back off of anything.
Right. And
that comes with us still working out our master distiller process and our barrel testing process. And as we refine that, I think we'll get a little bit better with that too. We'll pinpoint a little bit more, but that first batch, and we do have the added benefit, like I said, if it's non-temperature controlled environment. So we're getting, draws and pushes throughout the season. So it is definitely getting some good barrel flavor coming out of there.
That's awesome, because I can tell you from personal experience, being a Texas boy, Texas whiskey, little, maybe 18, 20 years old at this point, max, right? We're just now getting to where we can understand Texas whiskey. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those learning curves where you're like, okay, that didn't work. We left it in the barrel too long. Or, oh, that was not enough. Or, because there's a lot of people around here, especially, that are doing like slow water reduction in the barrel, because we get super hot in the summer, obviously over 110 and stuff like that. So they're trying to keep it from evaporating all the whiskey out of the barrel, obviously. So they're doing slow water reduction. So they'll go into lower lower barrel entry proof, and then slowly over time, I don't know the schematics of it obviously, but over time they'll add water to it. And they've got 4, 5, 6, 7 year old whiskeys now, which is great. But it's just that, like you're saying, it's that learning curve and just kind of playing with it and being like, hey. And the good thing about you guys using the smaller barrels is if it does get a little over tannic or whatever you want to call it, it's not like you're losing 300 bottles. You're losing a couple. Yeah. Yes. It's time, money, and energy that you wasted, but at the same time, it's not a complete loss. Like you lost, 200 barrels or something like that. So that to me is,
we're experimenting a little bit. There's a process called slow proofing. Where we, I don't know if you're aware of that, but yeah, there's a process called slow proofing where you go at a higher proof, but less in the barrel. And throughout the time that it sits in the barrel, you proof it down to your bottle proof.
Okay.
So theoretically it gives you a more consistent bottling flavor. And then there's a distillery down the road from us that does, and this is gonna kill me, but there's a Spanish methodology for proofing where you take a barrel and you move it down a line, basically. Yes. It's a very extensive process of actually of aging product. So there's a couple of different methods on how, and the fun thing about us is that we get to try them all. So we did a slow proofing. We're messing around with barrel proofs a little bit. So we have some stuff that went in at 105, and then we have some stuff that went in at 115, and then we have some stuff that went in at 125, which is like maxed out for what we're supposed to be doing. So we're trying all of it, so that when we hit the ground with something we really like, we can hit the ground running. So I think we're very much in that experimentation phase. I don't, to be full transparency, we'll probably never leave an experimentation phase. But at the very least, we'll have something that we can consistently do that we really like. So yeah, there's a lot of methodology trying for barrel testing and barrel proof and everything like that we're working our way through.
Right. And it's one of those things that you can, say this one turned out pretty good, release it to market and get customer feedback on it. Because that to me in my business, I'm a plumber by trade, getting a customer feedback and saying, hey, you did a great job. This was awesome. Blah, blah, blah. It makes you say, okay, I'll do that same thing again. And then hopefully it'll happen. But and like you're saying, doing a smaller quantity makes it to where you don't have as much loss as well. So if something didn't hit with everybody, you're like, okay. And then you just have your little spreadsheet, which, all distillers love spreadsheets, right?
We have so many spreadsheets.
and so that's the thing. Like, you just put it down. Okay. That the 105 or the 125 didn't work. Let's move on to 107, or, you just incrementally move up or down accordingly. And that's what's so cool about distilling and whiskey making and all of the things is it's not an exact science. It's not. There's people out there that will tell you you can dial it in to 1/16 of a what? No, you can't. No, you can't, because it's all about temperature. It's all about the grain. It's whatever the yeast wants to do. It's there's so many variables in there. The barrel could leak. The whole there's so many things that could go wrong. You could have an off day, and your palate when you're tasting it off the still is different, and you get more heads in there or more tails in there. And that's what makes whiskey so cool, other than some of the other spirits, because neutral grain spirit, it's neutral grain spirit. It's going to taste like that forever. But with whiskey, especially, and I know brandies and other, rums and stuff are like that as well. It's very user driven, like it's who's distilling it, who's doing this. So that's what's so cool about talking with people like yourself and getting a perspective from somebody else, because everybody's perspective on this is different. It's the same, but it's different as well, which is so cool. It's so cool.
Everybody's palate, everybody's perspective, everybody's taste, everybody's interests. It's all different. And you try to have like an amalgamation of all these different things, you're never going to do it. So what we like to do is make something that we enjoy, and then we bring that out. And like you said, we're doing it at such a small volume that, like, if it doesn't hit, let's try something else. Let's take that. Right. Let's take that feedback. Let's take that criticism. Let's take that feedback and make it better on the next run.
Yep, absolutely.
And having the freedom to do that is why we're in this business. So
absolutely. So before we go, why don't you go ahead and tell us where our listeners can find you, website, or I know you guys are on Instagram and stuff like that. And then if they do they have to come to the distillery if they want a bottle, or is there any online sales for that?
So we're working through our online sales right now. We actually have a prospective distributor that's going to help us with our online sales. Okay. We're currently looking to expand into Maryland a little bit. Okay. So right now, our website is parkfarmsdistillery.com. And you can find us there, and you can find all of our, we're also, like you said, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Sorry, I'm making sure that. Yeah. So, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. And for right now, people local to the Pittsburgh area, Western Pennsylvania area, our tasting room is open, and you can also buy us in a place called Wandering Spirits in Ligonier. That's a local distributor that sells our products as well. Okay. But like I said, we were just in Pittsburgh. We're just expanding, and hopefully sooner rather than later, at the very least, one or two of our products will be online for sales. Because that'll be a different label approval process and everything. So
yeah, absolutely. And that is so cool. That is so cool that you guys are moving onward and upward. And I will have all of those links in the description down below. And Nick, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and hanging out with me. Did you have anything else before we get off?
No, man, I can't thank you enough for inviting me out here to be able to talk some whiskey with you. Absolutely. I have been to Texas a ton. I got family in Dallas. Actually, okay. I say Dallas. They live north of Dallas. They live in McKinney.
Okay.
McKinney. Yeah. So I got family out there, and I love Texas. Every time I'm there, it gets better every time. Fort Worth is one of my favorite places in the world. Never been to Austin. So never been to Austin though. So I definitely want to make it down there sometime. And
yeah.
Ultimately, man, I just really want to thank you for your time, for the conversation about whiskey, and give us the opportunity to talk about Park Family Farms and our story a little bit. And hopefully it was entertaining for you. Hopefully everybody, maybe some of those aspiring distillers that listen to your podcast got some stuff out of it that make their lives a little easier when they're getting into the business. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we do have those. We have guys that are, trying to start up something, and they're like, man, I don't know where to go. And I've had them reach out to me and be like, hey, where do I start? And I feel like your story is a good place to start. Not getting investors, doing all the things, trying to do it as much as you can yourself, which I understand is a big financial burden for you because you still got to feed your family and stuff like that. But at the same time, it was great. You did a great job. Stick on real fast. I want to talk with you. But y'all, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank y'all very much for hanging out with us. And until next time, keep your spirits up. Peace out.